There are a few people in this town who don't need much introduction, and this is one of them. One of the favorite sons, Darren McCarty, is here, and we're pleased as punch to have you here. The book is called My Last Fight, and if you think you know Darren, you probably don't know Darren, because I tell you what, I love you, but you read this book, you're a mess.
I am a mess. I'm a work in project. I'm a work in progress, I guess you could say, over 41 years. So
but you're a lovable mess, and that's why I think you're so endearing to the people of this city, because you're loyal. People know that. You're straightforward. They appreciate that, and you bust your ass.
Yeah.
And on top of anything else, people appreciate that the most. Is that why you think you succeeded here?
I think so. I think I had a little bit of an advantage growing up across the border and spent a lot of time in Michigan and in Detroit as a kid, and grew up a huge Tiger fan and Red Wing fan and Lions fan, and just endeared myself in the mentality. And growing up just across the border is, that's South Detroit. Even Journey says that. So just being around, you got the mentality. And the same mentality. We grow up, you got to work hard. You got to, you fall down, you got to pick yourself up again. And, unfortunately, I've had to do that more than double digits times in my life. But, this is who I am. This book is my truth. And I think the only way that I could get it out is to be 100% honest. And I learned that from Proby. And if you read Proby's book, the one thing that really hit me it's just that he just laid it on the line and said, here I am, this is what I've done, and you know what, judge me, don't judge me, it doesn't really matter, but this is me. And I think that book, it make you laugh and make you cry, but the one thing is, it's absolutely my 100% truth. And to me, that was the therapeutic part of it, and that's the reason I moved to Florida, and to get away and get a timeout to be able to do it. And Kevin Allen from the USA Today Sports hockey writer, I've known him 25 years, and he dug into some stuff that maybe I didn't want to be open and honest about, but with him and my wife Cheryl just would go through and go, no, you gotta get it all out there. You can't hold back anything. And once I started doing it, it came easier.
Well, Kevin's a fantastic writer, and we know that. How did this process work itself out? I'll start with this, the title. How'd you come up with the title, My Last Fight? What is that all about?
My Last Fight is, it's a daily fight with addiction. And, like I said, it's in there, functioning alcoholic. And, I've been doing enough program and therapy and treatments and stuff like that. What I mean by that is that, 2 years ago, I drank 15 to 20 beers a day and a fifth. Now if I have, 3-4 beers, a day or whatever like that, that's a fun, to me, that's, I've tried to cut everything out completely. It doesn't work, but it's a work in progress, and I'm proud of that, but it's my work in progress, and I've tried it a bunch of different ways, and this way right now is the way I'm doing it, and I'm happy to do it. I feel much better than I have in a long time, and just trying to move forward.
There's some phenomenal stories in here, and I want you to touch on some of them, because there's stories that people lived through. These are memories of people's lives, and you take us inside, kind of peel back the curtain a little bit, and I want to go somewhat chronologically, because on the ice first, you go to the 95 finals and you lose to New Jersey Devils, and you talk about the moment when the Devils are celebrating, and how you guys had to soak that moment in. Describe how it almost all springboarded from that moment.
It's funny, and obviously, when we can look back now, and I think it makes sense being removed from the game and from it. That, when your reporters always ask, it's a championship game, and how do you feel? And it's awesome, and has it hit you? And the guys are like, no, it hasn't hit you yet. It really doesn't hit you until years down the road when you reflect back about how special that was. And doing that book, it got me like, oh my God, I was part of these teams with these guys, and like that moment there was, I remember Drapes and I standing in front of the net, watching them celebrate at the other end, and he looks at me and he says, we ain't never letting this happen again. And, you know, and I go, yeah, you know, right. And that was sort of a springboard to our attitude. Now, I don't know if I mentioned the book or not, but that wasn't the scariest part wasn't losing to New Jersey in '95. Scariest part is setting the league record, 62 wins the next year and losing in the conference finals. That's when we really realized after that, it was like, oh my God, we may never get back.
Well, the
how hard it is,
that people may not remember is that after that '95 season, all of a sudden the best team in the NHL suddenly enters the Western Conference. So now these two teams, the Nordiques, become the Avalanche, and you start a rivalry that defines hockey and brought it to a level that it had never really been at ever in terms of rivalries for people in the modern era.
Yeah,
you can go back to Original Six and say there were great rivalries then, but in the modern era through expansion and everything else,
teams, right?
so you see each other all the time. But what you had and what you did on the ice emotionally, physically, through fighting, through trying to climb over that monster that was the Avalanche, it defined what your team was all about. And I don't want to spend too much time on, you know, the fight night of 1997, which was awesome, but just getting over Colorado.
Yep.
How did that help define what the Red Wings were all about?
The best way to put into account of that 6-7 year period from '96 to '02, it was like Gotti Ward every night. Where it was, if you ever seen the Turo Gotti Mickey Ward 3 fights, they just did a special on or whatever like that, where you stand there and just punch each other in the face, and somebody's going to win by a little bit. Now, they got us early and motivated us. Obviously, you know, the biggest part about, you know, not about the night March 26th was we had lost them the year before. No, forget the fight. Obviously, that's in the back of everybody's mind. But we had to beat them. We hadn't beat them since the last year, so they sort of had our number. And that's like, you know, 5 straight or 4 straight since we've been beat out. So winning the game was number one importance. We had to sort of like prove that we could, you know, they sort of had our number. They were treating us like we usually treat St. Louis. You know what I mean? They just couldn't beat us over the 90s and 2000s. But, yeah, so to winning the game was important. So, yeah, the fight happened, but you got to remember we were down 5-3 going to the third, and we tied it up, and then I eventually scored the overtime winner. But to win that game and the way that we did it, and still the greatest game of all time, in my opinion, front to back, no matter what. And but winning that game it brought us together the most, and where we believed, we finally clicked in, and it was like, yeah, we can do this. And you know, obviously that's in March, and little do we know, and June 7th we'd be hoisting the cup. But that was the defining moment. That was the defining moment in my mind to that team, that infrastructure, and that core of that team breaking out.
That's all great, and it's in here,
yeah,
which is fantastic. But what people may not know is that there was the Darren McCarty who you were seeing on television every day, but then there's the one who's living the life you're living every day.
Yeah, right.
And how disparate were those two people?
Did
you almost feel like you were living a
dual life?
I
lived 2 lives.
No,
I did. Obviously, you know, with between my addictions, whether it was alcohol, drugs, or gambling, to, you know, infidelities, you know, like I had 2 lives, and I lived it that way. I like, you know, hockey rocks, and I liked it. And it's tough because I go, you know, I'm 21, 22, 23, going 100 miles an hour on the ice with my hair on fire, and you want me to gear back when I get off? Well, there's with me, there's some give and take. You have to be able to accept that. In my mind, now me, it's now as I get older and stuff, and throughout. And when you read the book, the timeline is of my usage and addiction. There's definitely long periods of time of sobriety and in those times, but it's the times when there's not is where it's very dangerous. So in all that and learning, and you know, if I was entering the league at 41 or with the knowledge of where I'm at now, like anybody else, then when I'm 21, and that's, you know, the point I want in the book. Whether somebody reads something that they can relate to and say, hey, I relate to that, or it's a message to beware, you know, this could happen to you, or, you know, young people coming up, and just, you know, the big thing is people you surround yourself with. And, you know, in the beginning I surrounded with the whole state, and that was fine. now a few less people, but I'm happy. It's always, the key to me is always trying to find that balance.
You wrote in the book, if I hadn't played in the NHL, I might be dead now.
Oh, hell yeah.
Why?
Just because of my mentality and who knows what I've been doing. Hockey, because it was so important to me, was the governor. You know, there was the line, the difference, the one thing that I was always able to get away with or to realize is when that edge was coming. And I would get there and I may lean over, but I'm not going over the edge. And I thank God for that. But that was like hockey. When it came to, especially early, where it was going to affect my career or stuff like that, then and you know, and family at that point, then it wasn't worth it. So, no, hockey saved my life from growing up. So I mean, I owe a lot to it.
A couple other things I want to get to. 2002, you go to the Western Conference Finals. It goes to the Classic Game 7 against the Avalanche, and you're kicking the crap out of them through one period.
Scary.
Your description of the locker room was incredible. Tell people what that locker room was like after the first period in that Game 7.
All right, you'd think that if you, I mean, it was, we're up 4-0. And, you know, in our locker room, whether we're down or we're up, you know, it's always usually me and Drapes talking something, you know, guys talking around. Some guys are doing their sticks, getting treatment. That room was the quietest. You could have heard a pin drop in there because guys were so scared in disbelief. It was like that Monday Night Football game, New England, Denver. You know what I mean? You knew it was, you didn't want it. You thought it could happen, but you didn't want it to.
If you blow it, it's probably the worst choke job ever.
No, exactly. And it's like, so we're sitting in there, and it's like you got to relax. And thank God that we scored early in the second to make it 5-0. And that sort of like relaxed everybody. You know, we went out and played, but it's like we're looking around. Is this really happening? It's like, are we really up 4-0? Like, what? Somebody's joking us. And the greatest thing, I don't know if I mentioned in the book, but Scotty Bowman came in before the game and told us that, or not before that game, but some sort of thing, yeah, before that game, Game 7, is just, whatever happens, you know, I want to tell you guys that, you know, I really, appreciate, just go out and play and don't worry. And sure enough, we put 7 up on them. And, you know, it's funny because Patrick Roy's career ended in Montreal when we blew him out and he left. And then we blew him out in the last game that he played against us. So that I think that's pretty ironic.
Playing for Scotty Bowman, not always easy. A lot of players don't like him. You can't question his pedigree and how much he won, but your relationship with him was something special. And when he retired, he told you that you were his second favorite right wing behind Guy Lafleur.
Yeah, my Hall of Fame moment. Right
come
there
on.
At the Shrimp Bowl at Mr. and Mrs. Illich's house.
But what does it take for a player to mesh with him and what was the relationship like?
It wasn't. He knew what he was getting out of me every night. Like, he knew what he was getting with me. So he pretty much left me alone. I had like a little bit more freedom or whatever. He wouldn't get on me. And well, the best thing about Scotty is that if I'm Barry Smith and this is Scotty and you're me, and he wants to yell at you, he's going to yell at Barry. Barry, what the hell is he doing? Barry, what are you doing? And you're like,
I love the story about Tony Twist, though. That's a great story.
Dude,
where you didn't want to fight Tony Twist. Yeah, how did that happen? I mean, Tony Twist, obviously one of the best fighters in the history of the NHL. And what did Scotty do in that instance?
Oh, he put his leg on the bench and he leaned over, and Twister's like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, no, Scotty's like, he tells me for sure, don't even. So Scotty gets on the leg on the bench. He goes, if you fight him, you'll never play another shift. I'm going, sorry, Twister. Thanks. And I'm in my head, I'm going, thanks, Scotty.
Well, when you think about the fighting and everything else, well, let me get to that portion of the questioning at the end. You came back. I got here in 04, so the 04-05 season's canceled. You guys come back for 05-06, you get bought out. So I didn't even get a chance to experience you as a Red Wing until you came back in 08. You spent 2 years in Calgary. The second year wasn't as good as the first year because there was a coaching change and everything else. But people may not know that even before you made the comeback through Flint, Grand Rapids, and back to the Wings, the league told you couldn't even play until you cleaned your act up. What's that all about?
Yeah, pretty much. I was on, I had, because of many tests that I, failed or whatever at the end. And at the end of my Calgary, my last year, I had my second sport hernia. And second or third, I don't know if I've had so many. But, so I was out. And I was back in the throes of my addiction. And they just sort of came to me and said, well, you know what, your career's going to be done unless you, clean your act up. So I did. And, at the time I needed to. And I wanted to. And they always treated me great. But, yeah, so I had to go through all their program, probably for about 6 months or so, and just prove that I was doing the right thing. And then they gave me an opportunity to go to release and to play, even to go back and play in Flint. Wow. I needed that. So but I wanted it, and it was fun, and it was like, that's the one thing is when I've put my mind to something, I've always sort of been able to come out smelling like a rose. So that year was. I had an absolute riot from playing in Flint, getting back, loving the game, getting to play, getting put up points, to going to Grand Rapids, and scoring a hat trick in my first game back there, and just with all the young guys. When I watch the Wings now, I mean, those are my boys, dude. The Helmers, the Ericssons, the Howies, the Lashoffs, all the Quincy, all these guys that.
It's your connection
to the
team now.
To the team. And
but what about when you got up, and it was clearly a great run, and there were some injuries which kept you in the playoff lineup for probably longer than a lot of us expected you would be.
17 out of 12, yeah. I was there, and I showed Babs enough, I guess, because I still had to prove myself to him, but got to play a few games and showed him enough that if I was not going to make the lineup unless somebody got hurt, well. Homer got hurt, so he'd stick me in, and then Mule got hurt, and I got to play a couple games in the finals and a long way, but I ended up playing 17 games, and they limited minutes, but I go out there, do my job, and was on the ice when Hood scored that big goal in Pittsburgh.
Here's one: when you won Game 6,
yeah,
I want to know what it was like, because I thought about the guys. Who were back in the locker room, right?
God,
I mean,
dude.
I know for sure it was you and Shelley.
Yeah.
And was Dominic with you too? Because was there room for the backup goalie on the bench in Pittsburgh?
No, he might have been in the doorway.
I mean, think about just the guys.
I know. Oh yeah, that's
because
right.
you put on your uniform.
Yeah.
And you skate out obviously to join your teammates at the end of the game.
The scariest part of that is because it's just a Chinese fire drill on our end, like it usually was, coming down to the last minute, and that host thing. It's like, and even to say that in the next year, we didn't dress up. We were in overtime in Game 6 or at home or whatever. We didn't dress up, and then or whatever it was. But that year when we lost in 09, we didn't. But in 08, yeah, I mean, I remember standing there with Charlie. But the minute that buzzer went, and see how close that was. There's a great picture of me coming out with my arms up, and that was just awesome. Just because of the journey. And the people that helped me along the way, that was very important.
All right, a couple more. There's not a lot of mention of Mike Babcock. And because I don't know how much you cross paths with him, but what's your thought of him as a coach and what he's going to do with this group?
I think he's phenomenal X's and O's, preparation. I think the key with the Wings is just stay healthy. As far as I think that they run as a well-oiled machine when they're going. They're just fighting consistency, but they've played better lately. And that's the one thing is that there's going to be ups and downs, and it's great that some of the young guys are getting a chance, and if they can just stay healthy. So he's got a tough job, but I had obviously just a little time that I spent there in 08 and 09, but I love the attention to detail. I'm a stats guy, so I mean there's like. Just his breakdowns, and runs the greatest practice ever. The practices are almost harder than the games, and that's what makes it so good. Just high pass, quick, boom, boom, boom.
Well, it's a crazy life, and it's a life that's really enjoyable to read. The book's called My Last Fight. We were joking before we came out here. You don't have to read it in order. It's great bathroom reading because you can kind of hop in any single chapter and sort of pick it up from there. And I think you and Kevin Allen did a great job. I know you're going to be doing a ton of signings throughout this month. clearly, if you have a hockey fan who's on your Christmas list or your Hanukkah list or anything else,
and
this
you know
is
what?
the book you want to get.
One thing too is that if you're a music fan, because of the music, every chapter has a song lyrics, and in the back of the book there's a playlist that goes through each chapter. So you add the song, so you can download the song, listen to the song, read the chapter. It makes it, it gives it that much more pop. So.
That's cool. What a great guy. Great for you to come in here. Enjoy this tour where you're going around talking about the book.
Thank you, Tom.
And, good luck with the book sales.
Appreciate it.
I learned a lot about you.
All right. Good or bad?
Both.
All right.